This is your friendly neighborhood author, Jonathan, and you are listening to Season 4 of the Floor Rejects podcast, The Wells House Phenomenon. Hi, listener, watcher, consumer, podcast lover. It's Jonathan here. You already know that. Welcome back to the Floor Rejects podcast. Quick recap of what we covered last week. It was chapter 10, and it was the beginning of a very erotic interaction between Edward and Warren. We know Warren has kind of fought the idea of being with one of the people who's technically one of his employees, but he can't really fight it that much when he doesn't know what he's fighting against, and it turns out that Edward is much more skilled in the art of endearing himself than Thomas is or wants to be, and so we see that really develop in chapter 10. We also get some more time with Barty, the grandfather, but really what he's getting from his grandfather is a lot more of the don't let them take advantage of you, don't let them know anything that you know, don't let them do anything. And then there's also this interaction with Thomas right at the end of the chapter, in which Thomas kind of just realizes that Warren is not as scrambled and confused during the night as he should be, or as they would like him to be, and he tries to warn Warren, but he unfortunately doesn't really succeed. So that's where we left off on chapter 10. We're moving into chapter 11, which I never gave a title, so let's give it a title right now. What should we call it? The Next Step. How about that? That sounds good. So we're moving on to chapter 11 now. If it freaks you out and you're watching this, you can let me know, but you are on like a little stabilizer gimbal, so if I go this way or if I go this way and you're watching it, the camera's going to just move with the way that I move to try and avoid some of the focusing issues that I've been having. Besides that, that's pretty much all we're getting into. If you're listening to this on your podcast app and you're not watching, then nothing has changed. You can probably hear in the background the sounds of my neighbors doing laundry again. I apologize. I tried to tune it out in the last episode, and I think I did a pretty good job sound-wise, but I also felt like there was a bit of, I don't know, there seemed to be some like weird little sounds that kind of poked through where the background sound had been filtered out. So let me know how it sounds. I can always go back and edit it. I don't really want to, and I think it sounds okay. But I don't really have much time to record during the week, and this week has been, well, we have a new president. It's not important. We'll talk about it after. Let's get into chapter 11, The Next Step. Okay? Chapter 11, The Next Step. Warren woke up tired. He didn't know why. He never did, but increasingly he wondered why he bothered sleeping. Breakfast was the same as it always was, and while he still felt little butterflies in his chest as he thought of Edward and their tawdry moments the day before, he was feeling on edge as he wandered out onto the back lawn after he ate. He shuffled down the gravel drive towards the barn. He passes his car, ignoring the fleeting thought to run out to town, maybe get some melatonin or sleep aids. He walks behind the building, looking out at the tree line. He remembers the swimming hole, smiling to himself as he meanders into the woods, making his way in the general direction that he thought the hole was, his mind sloshing emptily as he crunched through the leaves and detritus. He wondered briefly if he could find his way out, but he catches the slightest scent of water and hears the gentle lap of water against stone. He follows the sound and can feel his face split into a grin as he sees the rim of the opening come into view. He jogs up to it, feeling peace and tranquility rolling over him as he kicks his shoes off and plops at the edge, kicking his feet out over the water, and that wiggled and slapped against the shale rocks at its sides. Warren lays back, letting his head fall back into the grass around him and his mind slip peacefully from consciousness as the leaves above him rustle and the tree branches creak and groan overhead. When his eyes open, his dream world promises, at least this one time, to be a time of solace and rejuvenation. He leans up, looking down at the water under him, and decides to give himself some free time. He knows that during the day he was largely invisible to the others, at least he thought he was after Lila had looked through him, and he also knew that pressing his luck during the day when he wasn't sure he could help himself was a bad idea. He pulled his shirt over his head, and as he steps onto the edge of his jeans and slides out of them, he looks down at the water again, ready to feel its chilly embrace as he shirks his underwear and steps back. He feels carefree as he launches out into space, hovering just long enough for Warren to pinch his nose and brace as the cold water wraps over him. He shoots up, blowing the air from his mouth, shouting in glee as he shudders violently and uncontrollably. He sucks in a deep breath, letting his body float to the surface, enjoying the sun on his skin as he warms, calmly bobbing in the water with his eyes shut. He feels completely serene, as if he could fall asleep within the stream. His body, or his meta-body, was experiencing wild, hot and cold sensations as the air around him stilled and his ears adjusted to the water. He can hear the sounds of water plodding up at the walls, hear the sounds of bubbles coming up around him, and the beating of his own heart. His mind is empty, and his thoughts as shifting and liquid as the swimming hole. After a long while of thinking about doing nothing, simply absorbing the light shining down on him, he feels a cold sensation over his body, and the light shining into his eyelids dims. He peeks up, expecting to see a large tree branch or cloud in front of the sun, but instead he sees Edward. The man is staring down at the water, at Warren, who shirks back into it, pulling his face half under as he looks up at the man. He appears to be staring intently at the water, but doesn't say anything to Warren. Warren kicks gently, trying not to create waves, and Edward turns towards the ground at his feet, poking softly into the grass with his shoe. Warren doesn't understand what he was doing at first, but then feels a sensation in his side, a nudge. Edward gets down onto his knees, leaning down to where Warren assumed his body was in the real world, and as Warren cringes, the man kisses him softly. Warren can feel it on his lips, and he can also feel his real-life body begin to stir and react, and Warren curses quietly as he hears the telltale rumbling. The sky around his swimming hole darkens quickly, as Edward's hands feel like they begin to caress Warren's face, and just as he is waking up, Warren looks up to see Thomas, peeking out from behind a nearby tree, just as his eyes are shrouded. Warren then wakes up to the feeling of Edward's warm hand on his cheek. He smiles into the palm against his skin, his eyes opening like a cat waking from a nap. "Hey," Warren murmurs. "Welcome back to the real world, handsome," Edward says, his low voice sending a shiver down Warren's spine. "How did you find me out here?" Warren asks, leaning up onto his elbows again. Edward laughs quietly. "Awfully self-centered, aren't we, Master Wells? I'll have you know I come here to relax. It's where I used to go when I was younger and lived here with my mom," Edward says, leaning down and kissing Warren gently. A rustling in the nearby brush startles Warren, and he looks up, only to see a flash of brown in the undergrowth. "What was that?" Warren whispers in Edward's ear. Edward turns and sees nothing. He smiles down at Warren. "Don't be paranoid. No one's looking for us," Edward says, pushing Warren down against the warm earth. Warren giggles as Edward slides a leg over his waist, straddling him. Taking it slow," Edward groans, leaning down and pecking tenderly at Warren's mouth, down his neck, across his chin, all the while Warren letting his mind drift and his hands clutch at Edward's back. "Warren Wells, you are positively delectable," Edward says, sliding a hand under Warren's thin cotton t-shirt. Warren gasps, his back lifting up off the ground at the feeling. The trees whisper and rasp as the two of them become more and more enraptured. Edward pulls his shirt over his head, tossing it aside as Warren scrambles to pull his off too. Edward's hairy, hard-muscled chest is down, pressing Warren into the grass. Warren can't focus, the abundance of stimulation sending his brain into short circuit. He pushes up against Edward, and the man groans as he separates from him. "What?" Edward asks, his breath ragged. "Slow, remember?" Warren says, his vision coming back into focus. "Slow can be fun, Warren. Relax. Enjoy it. Enjoy me." Edward leans back down, and Warren can't fight his natural urge, and he pulls Edward harder against him, grasping fervently at his hot skin and smiling as he struggled for dominance against the much larger man on top of him. Edward separates, pulling back and rearing up over Warren, eclipsing the sun. Edward smiles, taking Warren's hands in his, kissing each knuckle gently. Then he takes Warren's hands and places them on his pecs. Warren groans, his eyes rolling back in his head as he kneads the magnificent thews. "Jesus, Edward," Warren mutters. Edward grabs Warren's wrist, stilling his hands. "He's got nothing to do with this. Call me Eddie," Edward whispers as he leans back down to Warren and continues his warm, wet assault on the man's neck. They lay like this, wrestling, groping, and avoiding moving too fast for hours, taking breaks to laugh and talk. Warren finds Edward enthralling, alluring, and irresistible. Edward appears to feel the same way, and as they eventually find their way weaving back through the forest towards the house, Warren begins to picture his life with this continuing. Edward keeping him warm at night, his days spent luxuriating in the beautiful countryside that he owned. Dinner was becoming the opposite to what it had been when Edward had arrived. Warren now sat right next to Edward, talking to him quietly and laughing under his breath as they flirted quietly, stirring anger in the younger brother, who storms out as soon as dessert is served. Lila appears unaware, serving up plates of baked Alaska and excusing herself to her room. The men are on each other before they can take a bite of their food, Warren scrambling to get his hands under Edward's shirt where he toys with Edward's hard, tight nipples. Edward hums, kissing Warren gently, Warren kissing back harder, pushing Edward against the edge of the table. Warren is inflamed and his hands are frantic as they were another set of eyes taking on as much as they could of the arousing man in his grasp. Eventually, Edward lifts Warren up effortlessly, placing him on the table. They both laugh, and Warren lets his hands drift now lower, the feeling of thick, coarse hair across Edward's impossibly taut, rounded stomach supremely alluring. Warren wants to take it slow. He knows that that is reasonable, but he's quickly losing control he was used to feeling. "You are irresistible, Edward," Warren whispers into Edward's ear. "And you, my tantalizing employer, are much more than I bargained for when I agreed to come back here," Edward says, laughing as Warren's hands pause at the waist of his jeans. "Back at ya," Warren says into Edward's mouth. Edward stills as Warren's hands slide over his belt loops. "Keep going," Edward says, brushing up against Warren. The smaller man hesitates, but his fingers slip under the tight fabric. Edward's pants are packed so well that Warren can't get into them, and Edward laughs, opening his fly with one hand, his other one gently wrapped around Warren's neck. Warren's hands slide down, clutching at the bristly, flexing haunches. "God damn," Warren says quietly, tilting his face down against Edward's forehead. "Again, he has nothing to do with me," Edward says with a chuckle. "I don't know how he doesn't. You're sculpted like an Adonis," Warren says, his hand shifting and palpating on Edward's rear. "Adonis? Really? He's a dick," Edward says, and Warren laughs, kissing him before pushing himself sideways and off the table. "And on that, I will be taking my leave before we move past a point of no return," Warren says, bowing and turning to leave the room, pausing as Edward bends down, letting his bulbous hirsute backside glow in the dim light of the wall sconces. Warren groans and walks stiffly up to his room, where he falls across his bed in exhaustion. He still wasn't caught up on his sleep, as his nighttime rest was less than restoring. He considers masturbating, but decides against it, mostly because he was too tired. He kicked off his pants and rolled under the blankets, not even bothering to turn off the lights or turn the TV on before he was asleep. His eyes snap open, and he's paralyzed with shock and awe at his own vulnerability to a beefy man in tight jeans. The door creaks open as he's sliding his feet from the bed. "Warren? Need some company?" Edward asks in a low, sing-song voice as he comes into the room. Warren freezes, turning to see Edward in only tight white briefs and an open terry cloth robe standing in the doorway. Even as Warren recoils from the thought of Edward touching him, he has to admit, whoever was deciding how Edward looked, they had done a bang-up job appealing to Warren's tastes. "I thought I told you, slow," Warren says, trying to keep his voice from shaking. Edward tisks disappointedly. "If that is what you want, that is what you'll get, Warren Wells," Edward says. Warren forces a smile. Thank you for understanding, Eddie, Warren says, using the nickname to keep up the appearance of affection. Warren heaves a huge sigh of relief as Edward leaves, and he quickly dresses and sneaks out the door, ready to head back down to the barn. But as he turns a corner on the side of the house, he's slammed against the clapboard, a hand over his mouth. Don't scream. Don't do whatever it is you do to wake up. Got it? Thomas hisses into Warren's ear. Warren nods, and the hand is down. I'm sorry, I just don't want them to know. Know what? Warren whispers, pushing Thomas back. He was still one of them, as far as Warren was concerned. That you know, Warren, Thomas says. Know what? I don't know anything, Warren says, which was only sort of true. Know that you're dreaming, Warren, that you know what's happening, Thomas says, gesturing for Warren to follow him. Warren doesn't move at first, and Thomas sighs. If I was going to hurt you, I would have done it by now, Warren. I would have told my mother, or Edward, Thomas says, and Warren reluctantly begins to follow as they walk down the driveway towards the front gate. As soon as the house is out of sight, Thomas stops. Warren, what have you figured out? Thomas asks, his tone guarded but seemingly honest. I don't know anything, Thomas, I swear. Warren lies. Thomas tilts his head expectantly. I don't. All I know is I'm asleep, and that I don't know anything while I'm awake, and that you all can change what you look like, somehow, Warren says, and Thomas chuckles. So you know a lot of nothing. Okay, look, you have to be careful when you were asleep. You can't let on that you know what is happening, but here's the thing. You can't let Edward or my mother get any, closer to you in your dreams. What happens to you here is very real, and what you do with them can cause a lot of damage, Thomas says, and Warren steps back in shock. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not going to... Warren begins to lie, but Thomas holds up a hand. I saw you two by the swimming hole. Don't lie, Thomas says, and Warren clucks. You can't help it, Warren. He's a charmer. It's his job. But at night, you need to be careful. Do you understand what's happening here, Warren? Thomas asks. Warren can feel the pieces clicking together in his mind, but he can't be 100% sure. No, well, I think, but I don't know. This is all too much. What I'm thinking can't be real. How can I trust anything you say? Warren asks, unconsciously digging his nails into his palm to dull his anxiety. As he feels his skin break, he has the thought that the rumbling should start, but it doesn't. He looks down at his palms, the blood already pooling. Guess that doesn't work anymore. Warren groans, wiping his hands on his shirt. Warren, I don't know how to explain this to you easily, but, well, my family, we're... Thomas is interrupted as the sound of Edward and Lila's voices come into his earshot. Warren's eyes grow wide. Thomas looks around, his eyes wide as well. He grabs a paver from the edge of the driveway. Warren, listen to me. I need you to trust me, okay? I know this can be a lot. I know you don't know who to trust. I don't really know how to explain it, but I can't do to you what has been done to the others. I can't. You aren't like the others, Warren. Do you trust me? Thomas asks. The voices are getting close. A minute more and they would be over the hill and they would see the two men. Warren doesn't trust anyone on the property. He's desperate to escape and frightened now at the panic in Thomas's voice, and with a gulp he nods. Close your eyes, Warren. Shut them tight and turn around, Thomas instructs. Warren does as he's told, holding his breath. Remember, Warren, Thomas whispers, bringing the paver up over his head and down onto Warren's. Warren crumples, and before his body hits the ground, the world around him shatters violently, ending abruptly and unlike all the other times. The last sound he hears being Edward's deep voice, calling his name. All right. We're going old school, and by old school I mean I'm going to fix my hair so I don't look like I'm losing my mind, and we're going to try this for like the fourth time. I have recorded 4 different outros or conversations at the end of this podcast, and as you can probably tell if you're watching the video version of this, the gimbal thing didn't go the way I thought it would. I ordered it mostly for my DIY videos, but I thought maybe it would be fun for this. Turns out it's not. Also turns out that the app that you have to use to do the recording put a beauty filter on me, and I didn't realize it until I'd recorded 20 minutes of reading. So apologize that I look like that. Also apologize for the focusing issues. I think I might go simple is better and just record this way from here on out, at least until I can get my sea legs better. I mean, I've pretty much mastered the audio part, so hopefully I can get the video part down. But let's talk about what I like about this chapter. I like a lot of things about it. I like that Warren realizes that Edward comes in hot and fast when he's asleep during the day, you know, when he doesn't have all his memories, and that he wants to take it slow, but that he also is kind of just like enchanted by this super hot guy that shows up at his house. And I think that speaks to the weakness of men, specifically because men are weak. We're susceptible to things we find sexually attractive, and we will do anything we can to get to them. I like that about this chapter. I also like that when Warren is fully cognizant of what's going on around him, he finds Edward repulsive in every way but physically. And by that, I just mean he looks at Edward and can kind of say, yeah, I think this guy is attractive physically, but he is a nightmare. So I like that about this chapter, that he can be simultaneously attracted to him and repulsed by him, and really go with the repulsed part. I like that Thomas is beginning to finally get a personality, other than just uncomfortably flirting with Warren, because, you know, the first 10 chapters or 9 chapters, however many we've spent with Thomas, has been either him being like aloof and just away, and then when Lila realizes that he's got a better shot than she does, he's like uncomfortable and doesn't want to flirt, and when he does flirt, it comes across as like menacing, like when they're at the swimming hole and Warren is just like I don't, this is like the weird in between what's going on thing, like, are you straight, are you not? Edward makes it very clear from the beginning he is interested in having some sort of relationship with Warren, whereas Thomas beat around the bush and wasn't really clear on what he actually wanted, and I think that was to his detriment in getting what is needed. We all know what it is at this point, but we're not going to say it until it's said in the story. I like that I learned a new word for Harry, which is hirsute, Hirsute, and a new word for muscles, which is hewn, Hewn. I think it'll scroll past if you're watching the video, and if you're just listening, I found it on Google Synonyms. So it's very fun to learn new words for the same things. I have said it before, I'll say it again, it's hard to find a variation of words to describe sexually the male body in ways that aren't strictly just giving it power, if that makes sense. You can talk about someone's muscles without talking about the fact that they're powerful, and that's kind of what I aim to avoid, is providing the power to men. Let's be honest here. That's what I'm trying to avoid. I'm sexualizing men because they haven't been, and they deserve to be, and women have, or female-bodied people have been the butt of the male gaze for all of paternal, patriarchy history. So let's flip the script a little bit. That's what I'm here to do. I'm not really here to like make men seem powerful. In fact, Warren is quite weak in the knees as soon as Edward shows even a hint of attraction. So I like that. Every single version of this outro, I've basically been saying the same thing, and it is that I appreciate you giving me your time. I appreciate you listening every week, even if nobody is giving me any constructive feedback, which is kind of why I started this. Not like mean feedback, just like, hey, I think this is where it should go, or I like what you did here, or maybe what you should do instead of doing this is doing this. If anyone has any suggestions that's like good at writing, or has spent a lot of time writing intimate scenes between two male or two female or two people of the same gender or with the same pronouns, if anyone has any great ideas on how to make it clearer who's speaking or who's doing what without constantly saying the names of the characters, because that's difficult for me. It was difficult in We Just Call It Love. I completely avoided it with Drabble by going first person, and now I kind of like don't really know how to do it properly. So what I've been saying is, this is a draft. This is a rough draft. Every week I come to you with a rough draft. Usually it's about 5,000 words, but I'm trying to stop forcing myself to write 5,000 words, which doesn't sound like that much, I guess. But it's a lot to do. And not that I don't love doing it, but if I make myself write 5,000 words for every single chapter, I'm never going to want to go above it. And I'm always going to write 2 or 3 times what I need to write to get a point across to fill a word count, if that makes sense. We still had 20 minutes of story today, according to my recording. So it's not like we have a shortage of story. It's just maybe shorter episodes. And I mean, it doesn't bug me if it doesn't bug you. So maybe I just won't have ads on every episode. I don't think it's necessary. I'm not here to be like a get-rich-quick girly. I'm just here to, get some feedback, get some responses, kind of figure out what people like and don't like and what I could be doing better and what I am doing well. And also so that I can go back, listen, watch, and feel a little bit more confident in knowing there's some things that I'm doing that I do like, and remind myself of that, because sometimes it's hard to remember that. But I'm tired, and if I have to record this one more time, I'm gonna fucking lose it. Like, put my head through the window, lose it. So we're gonna end it here. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you not pointing out that I cut my bangs too short, and that I kind of feel like I might be balding on one side of my head. Thanks for not pointing that out, or for pointing out that I have a Band-Aid on my finger, because I slipped and a screwdriver went through the pad of my finger and came out the nail. So I might die of tetanus, but either way, I'll be back next week. If you're interested in DIY stuff, this week I'm putting out a 10-12 minute video of me restoring or refurbishing a vintage folding coronet chair. It's the kind of mid-century style wooden folding chairs with the usually like pleather or leather seat back and seat. So that'll be coming out. I've got another video after that for the chair I'm sitting in now. It's like a 1980s molded chrome style chair that I just recovered really and polished the chrome a little bit. Polish the chrome. That'll be coming out, I think, next week. And then the week after that, what's next? I've got a couple things. If you want to let me know if there is something you want to see between these two choices in the next few weeks. I've got 2 folding chairs. It sounds boring, but they're vintage. They are like a more ornate, solid style of folding chair, in which the seats are, I mean, it's folding chairs, but there's different types of folding chairs. Not like the cheap folding chairs that you keep in the closet for when a couple guests come over to eat at like Thanksgiving, but they're like padded, upholstered folding chairs, and they're not, how most folding chairs, like if this is the seat, it just folds up and the legs go with it. With these chairs, the seat goes up, but nothing is attached to it. The legs just kind of snap into it, and then the legs are still left here, and then they like fold in on it. So they're interesting chairs, and I found one and redid it like 2 months ago, and it's the one I used to sit in here. And then I found this other one like 6 counties away in a different like thrift. I think this one was in an antique mall, and the other one was at Goodwill. So I'm going to do them as a pair now. I'm going to just reupholster them with the same fabric, and hopefully we have a good video there. But the last thing, and let me know if this is something you'd rather see first, is I got let me see if I can adjust this real slightly and show you. It's over here. You see that mirror back there? It's a massive kind of, I think it's a 1980s mirror, but it also kind of looks Art Deco to me, just in the stacking effect of it. I picked it up at a Peddler's Mall, and this one called itself an antique store, and it was pretty nice. Picked it up. I would say it's probably 4 feet tall, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. And it's arched. It's really beautiful. And I got it for $40, which sounds like a lot, but it's like got beveled edges. It's very beautiful. You'll see in the video whenever you see it. But I got it pretty cheap because there's a crack in it, and I want to see, and I'm going to make a video of it and see if maybe it'll work, and maybe it's something that might inspire someone else, or if you break your mirror or a piece of glass, maybe it's a way for you to fix it. I think I can cover the crack up and make it, if not disappear, camouflage it so that it's not quite so noticeable. So let me know what you do want to see. You can tweet me at the Floor Rejects on Twitter. You can email me, floorrejects@gmail.com. Let me know what you do or don't want to see, what you do or don't like. I mean, you can let me know where you think I need to improve, and I will appreciate it. If it hurts my feelings, I will cry a little bit. Don't leave me a message about my bangs though, because I know, I'm aware. My hair was dead. It was so fried. It was awful. But let me know. I also have, real quick, I know I keep saying this is it. Do you see back here? Do you see this thing? Let me try this. Alexa, garden lights on. And it just blew out. Alexa, garden lights off. Okay, you see that thing that just lit up? It's a mid-century vintage. I thrifted it at a peddler's mall, like a doctor's light from like the 40s, I think. I found it for like $25 at this peddler's mall because nobody wanted it. I went home and Googled it. It's worth like $400. I'm using it as a plant light. I just hooked it up to a smart light, and I'm using it as a plant light. So let me know if you want to see me like go over that, restore it, do something to it. Right now it's like a mid-century cream color. It's very non-obtrusive, intrusive. But I've been finding a lot of really cool stuff, and you should let me know if you want to like see what I do. I don't feel like I'm not going to be one of those people who's like, come vintage shopping with me, because like that's not it. And I live in the South where like I'm always half a step away from getting hate crimed, so I don't want to make it any worse on myself. But let me know if there's anything you want to see. But other than that, I'm going to cut it off here because, again, I'm getting the low battery signal from my phone, and I'll be back next week. As always, I appreciate you listening, watching, all those great things, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I'm going to end this before I stand up and then you see in the mirror that I've got a big, juicy, dump truck, voluptuous gorilla